Now, the Bible has a principle in Proverbs 23:7. It says, "As he thinketh in his heart, so is he." We can apply this to any part of life, but especially to disease. If we're thinking we're sick, as I was so worried that I had some terrible parasite or something terribly wrong with me, and I was acting like a sick person and doing everything like a sick person. But once I decided I'm going to be well and started acting like I'm well, then God could heal me. Now, I came across a couple very interesting stories that demonstrate the power of the mind in disease. These came out of the Health Reformer, which was the first Adventist periodical published in the 1800s. And this article was written by J.N. Lockborough. And he says that these are true stories. This first one came from a factory in Massachusetts. And there was two workers who were debating about how much the imagination has to do with disease. And one of them claimed to the other one, "I can make any man in here sick if I want to by convincing him that he's sick." Of course, the other one's like, "No, you can't." So they decided to do the experiment. So the next day, they chose the strongest, healthiest man in that factory. The next morning, they had someone go up to him and say, "Hey, Pat, you're looking kind of faint today. Are you sure you should have come to work?" And Pat says, "Well, I was feeling fine when I left home. I think I'm okay." It's like, "Oh boy, well, you better take it easy because you look faint." Not a few minutes later, the second man comes in and says, "Pat, are you okay? You look terrible. You better take it easy today. I'm really worried about you." Then the third one comes in and says, "Why, Pat, you look as pale as death. Why in the world did you come to work today? You are sick. You better go home and get some rest." And by that time, guess what? Pat was feeling sick. And he was chilled and, feeling faint and weak. And so he says, "Yes, I better get home to my wife." So he leaves there, it says, with faltering step at a slow pace. This is 10 o'clock in the morning, leaving to go home. And he goes home, gets in bed, and his wife is fixing him tea and herbs and doctoring him. Well, by that time, the coworkers decide we better tell the truth. So that they go to his house and tell him, "You are not sick. We convinced you were sick." And he believed them, got up, got dressed, went back to work, and finished the day strong. But J.N. Lockborough goes on to say that if they had not gone and told him that it was in his mind, he would have been sick. The second story that he says in this article is also very interesting about a man in France who committed a crime and was sentenced to death. And the doctors got permission to do some experimenting on him before they actually put him to death. And they were going to convince him that he was bleeding to death and see what it would do to his mind. So they blindfolded him. They told him what they're doing. They punctured his arm, although they did not poke it bad enough to even cause much blood. But they told him he's bleeding, and they put warm water down his arm. They told him everything that's happening, and, "Oh, you're not going to last much longer." And just, they had everything to catch the dripping blood, and they just described it in such detail that this man actually fainted and died. So this, Ellen White says that some diseases are completely imaginary, and we actually die from them. So isn't that something? In the Bible, there's a principle of healing that when the impotent man had been at that pool, and Jesus goes to him, he says, "Rise, take up thy bed and walk." Now this man could have said, "But I can't walk." But in acting upon God's word, he received strength and was able to walk. And we see this principle in healing and overcoming sin, in any principle in our life. When God promises something, don't wait for the feelings. Believe it and go forward. Mm-hmm. Here's a quote from Ministry of Healing 241. "Many are lifelong invalids who might be well if they only thought so." Isn't That's something. There are thousands who can recover health if they will. The Lord does not want them to be sick. He desires them to be well and happy, and they should make up their minds to be well. Often invalids can resist disease simply by refusing to yield to ailments and settle down in a state of inactivity. Now, I just actually had a friend call me this morning, and she was telling me her frustration with trying everything and still having ongoing health issues. And she even made the statement, I will do anything to get well. I would even eat poop if I knew that would heal me. And you know what? I just felt impressed to say to her, maybe your problem is you're trying too hard and you're not trusting God. So I encouraged her to start believing that she is well in faith and eat like you're well, believe you're well, don't focus on your sickness, and be well, and I really think she will get better. Here's another interesting quote from Counsels on Diets and Foods 109. If you are in constant fear that your food will hurt you, it most assuredly will. Forget your troubles, think of something cheerful. Now, this isn't just food. We are privileged to have a beautiful health message, and sometimes it can backfire on us because we know too much. This is what happened to me. I knew so much that every little imperfection, I knew that what that could be doing to my body, and so I would imagine it doing that. Like, let's say you're traveling and are in a situation where you don't have ideal food, or maybe you have to sleep in a room for a night that doesn't have any windows. Are you stressing about it? Are you worrying that this is going to hurt me, because we know the importance of fresh air? Well, what I've come to learn is that actually worrying about it is worse than the actual violation of whatever situation we're in. Now with food, as I said, I had cut out so many foods. One of them was wheat, and I just wonder how many people out there today are avoiding wheat because of fear, because it has been so hyped up today, because it's been deemed this horrible food that has been modified. And now I understand that there are people that truly cannot have wheat, and I'm not going to judge, but I know for me, I spent 10, 12 years avoiding wheat because I thought it would hurt me. And you know what? Every time I ate it, it did hurt me. But this last, 3 months ago, when I decided I'm well, I'm like, you know what? It's not the food that's hurting me. It's been my digestion and my fear of the food. I'm going to eat all foods, and I'm going to be just fine. And sure enough, I'm fine. I can eat all the bread I want. I'm fine, So just ask yourself, is it your fear of this thing? And another principle to understand is once you cut something out of your diet, your body loses the gut bacteria and the digestive enzymes to digest it. So if you add it back, you might have some discomfort, but add it slowly and push through it and see what happens. And this is what I did, and I can eat everything now. I'm fine.